Hello, my name's Andrew. Following the last video, we're going to be having a bit more of a relaxed discussion today. One of my friends kindly volunteered to give them some insight on the topic. And please enjoy. If you liked it, hit like. If you didn't, hit dislike. Subscribe, comment, all that jazz. Thank you for coming on.
It's okay.
No need to look so nervous. This is a nice safe space. So what exactly do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about your own experience at all? Do you want to look more at what as a society we can be doing to stop this behaviour?
I can offer a little bit of everything, really. My own experiences, what I, as a woman, think can be done.
The floor's yours. So would you briefly like to talk about any sexual assault incidents that have happened to you?
I can touch on a couple. I won't go too far back.
So this has been throughout your life
throughout my life, yeah. From being a child.
From being a child, okay.
Right the way through up to being an adult in my 30s.
Wow, yeah. That's horrific.
The sad thing is it kind of becomes normal, and it's like that is what women have to deal with, and we kind of half expect it to happen, unfortunately.
Well, that's exactly why I'm trying to make these videos as a way of combating the normality of it, because ultimately what we consider normal isn't normal or shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be normal. We shouldn't be conditioned as women to walk the streets conscious of who's behind us, where we're going, if we've got keys, if it's well lit, if we're going to be on our own, if it's dark. All these things we think about mostly subconsciously now, whenever we go out anywhere.
So you're not even having to think about it?
No, I just do it, and I've found myself on autopilot ingraining that into my own daughter. She's preparing for that and knows not to go by herself, always with her friends, always got a phone, not at night.
I know another friend of mine that was taught by her mum at the age of 7 or 8, when she started to hit puberty and developing, to make sure that she covered up, even though she's 7 or 8 years old. She's a child.
Yeah. I always had my daughter with modesty shorts on underneath a school uniform, because kids are kids. They run around, they hang upside down, and you're always worried about protecting them from men, unfortunately, and it's ingrained into you that they need to be covered to be protected.
Now, you say men. Would you put other male children in that bracket of protecting your daughter, or maybe yourself when you were younger as well? Or was it always adult men?
From my own experiences, it's always been adult men.
Okay.
I don't ever remember boys, males my own age, until I got to being a teenager, being the ones that I had to worry about.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's horrific. That is horrific. What sort of habits have you developed, and what are you ingraining, unfortunately having to ingrain in your daughter following these experiences?
From a young age, as you say, I was always told not to wear my skirts too short, not to wear my tops too low, not to wear anything too revealing or provocative. And I do the same with my daughter, but I do try to break away from it with her a little bit to give her the freedom that she should have. I don't go out at night on my own. Very rarely I do, unless I'm driving, which is different. I always make sure people know where I am. So I'll let them know when I'm leaving, when I've got home. My daughter does the same.
What are your opinions on what can be done?
I think a lot of it comes down to the friendship groups that men have, and calling your friends out when you see them, like catcalling women or following them and trying to interact with them and not letting it go when the girl doesn't want to talk to them, and calling them out on that. It is starting to happen, but people are changing. It's just taking a long time.
Yeah, and of course it's going to take a long time to change this whole culture and stop the ingrained behaviours, but hopefully that does change.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, it is doing.
Have you seen these changes firsthand, or heard about
as
them?
I've got older and changed my friendship groups, a lot of my male friends now are more respectful and conscientious, especially of their female friends. They always are making sure that they get home safe. They'll walk them back to the car if it's dark and they don't want to be on their own. It's a stark contrast to when I was a teenager, where you just left you to it, and you just went home in the dark, down all the back alleys and running, making sure nothing was behind you. One from when I was a teenager, I think 16-ish, being out, I had some alcohol to drink, and I was
which is common in the UK culture.
Yeah, not supposed to, but we do when you're that age. I was walking back through the park and I was being walked home by whom I presumed was a friend, a male, slightly older than me, older brother of one of my friends. So I thought I was safe with him. The park was empty, dark, and he tried to make a couple of advances towards me, and I was like nervous because he was older than me and I didn't really know what to do.
What was the sort of age gap?
Probably
that's too important.
I was about 16, I think, so he would have just been 2-3 years older than me.
Okay.
So 18, 19.
Mhm.
And he was like putting his arms around me, and I wasn't comfortable, but I wasn't also confident enough to completely shut him down, because I didn't know how he'd react.
Well, of course, it's the implication of violence.
Mm-hmm.
If you reject a man coming onto you, of course there is the underlying threat that they might act violently.
Yeah, because I had that happen in the past, so I was worried about that happening again. So, when that happens, you think it's easier to just go along with what they want than say no, really. And anyway, he was adamant he was going to get what he wanted, and he dragged me onto ironically, the play area, the kids' play area, and pinned me on the slide, and
You don't need to.
Yeah, I'm not going to say, but you can imagine.
Yeah.
Didn't tell anybody because I was scared of losing my friend's group because he was my friend's brother, and so I didn't say anything, and I never said anything to anybody. And obviously that kind of thought process and feeling and the fear of saying something about what happened and not being believed and losing friends and arguing you has been a constant throughout, even now in my 30s. And it transfers into relationships as well.
No, of course, because you learn that behaviour, and then, as you just said, it's easier to go along with it, because then you're not getting violently hurt.
Yeah.
And of course, that just leads to more instances repeating, especially if you're too scared to confront that, or too scared to ask for the help, which, as I discussed, a lot of women are. 83% of women in the UK don't report.
No. And
for this exact reason.
It's easier to detach yourself from intimacy than it is to fight a full-grown male off you.
Of course. What do you wish you would have reported it when you were 16, or do you think you'd do the same again?
If I was to go back, I probably would do the same again.
Okay. But this is another part of the culture that I believe. Now, this is hard. This is an awkward position for me as a man. I almost don't want to encroach on this, but it does. I believe it needs saying. I think it's important for women to go out there and report it, even anonymously, because it happens so much. It needs to be called out. Yes, by the men, but also by the victims.
Yeah. And
you can pass it on. The police might not be super helpful, or there's charities that can act on your behalf. I'll link some below in the description. It's important to me that both men and women understand their role in changing this culture.
Yeah, I agree.
And especially, that's hard for a child, it's hard for a grown woman. And I imagine it's the same with a lot of men, why they won't stand up to their friends or exclude the friends who are doing this, because they're scared of losing that friend group, they're scared of being isolated, they're scared of violence.
Yeah.
But if we don't do anything about it, it just continues. And then we have to teach our children that this is acceptable, and then our children keep passing that on. And I want that to stop. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all do. I think a lot of women don't report is it's because of the way you, as the victim, get questioned. There's a lot of emphasis on, well, what were you wearing? You shouldn't have put yourself in that situation. You shouldn't have allowed... This is things that have been said to me by authority figures on the subject. They do ask what you were wearing, and if you're wearing a short skirt or like a small dress or something, there is a lot of implication that it's your own fault for dressing that way. So they're like, you put yourself in that position, you were wearing provocative clothing, you knew what was going to happen. And we shouldn't be treated like that. We should be allowed to wear whatever we want.
No, of course.
Without fear. But I think that's a massive factor on why women don't report it, because from the get-go you are made to feel like it's your fault.
There are a lot of problems with the police in the UK. I'm not even going to start with America, but certainly, no, that is horrific.
Like going back to how I think things are changing, like looking at my daughter and her friendship groups and their culture, they don't stand for it, or she doesn't, at least. If she sees...
That's amazing.
If she sees any of her male friends being inappropriate at school, like trying to put phones under the toilet doors and things, she calls them out and she reports them to the staff. which I think is brilliant.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of strength to do that, and she knows what's right, and a lot of her friends do the same as well. So the culture is changing in the younger generations.
Good. That's good to see.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I won't pry any further.
Okay.
That's been very enlightening. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.